The ocean is a vast, unforgiving void that covers most of our planet. Throughout history, it has swallowed countless ships, leaving no trace behind. But sometimes, the sea gives something back. It returns a vessel that is perfectly intact, yet completely empty of life. On December 4th, 1872, a British brigantine named the Dei Gratia was sailing through the Atlantic Ocean, heading toward the Strait of Gibraltar. The weather had been rough for several days, but the sky was finally clearing. Captain David Morehouse stood on the deck, scanning the horizon for other ships. Suddenly, his lookout spotted a strange sight. A lonely ship was drifting aimlessly in the distance, its sails tattered and its movement erratic. Captain Morehouse grabbed his telescope. He recognized the vessel almost immediately. It was the Mary Celeste, a ship that had left New York 8 days before him. The Mary Celeste was commanded by Captain Benjamin Briggs, a close friend and respected colleague of Morehouse. Knowing Briggs was an experienced and meticulous sailor, Morehouse sensed that something was terribly wrong. The ship was moving as if no one was at the helm. The Dei Gratia approached the drifting vessel. Morehouse shouted through a megaphone, calling for Captain Briggs, but there was no response. The only sound was the wind whistling through the rigging and the waves crashing against the wooden hull. The Mary Celeste was a ghost ship. Morehouse sent a small boarding party to investigate. As the sailors climbed onto the deck of the Mary Celeste, they prepared themselves for a scene of horror. They expected to find signs of a violent struggle, a pirate attack, or perhaps a deadly plague that had wiped out the crew. Instead, they found a mystery that would baffle investigators for over a century. The ship was eerily quiet, but it was not a wreck. The boarding party explored the deck and the cabins. Everything appeared to be in its proper place, though the air felt heavy and cold. The captain's cabin was tidy. His personal belongings, including his clothes and a harmonium, were untouched. Even more unsettling was the state of the living quarters. In the galley, the sailors found evidence that life on the ship had vanished in an instant. Some accounts claim that breakfast was still sitting on the table. The food was allegedly still fresh, and the tea was still warm when the boarders arrived. It looked as if the crew had simply dissolved into thin air mid-meal. There were no signs of violence, no blood stains, no bullet holes, and no broken furniture. The ship's cargo, over 1,600 barrels of industrial alcohol, was almost entirely intact. The crew's personal effects and valuable items were still in their trunks. Pirates would have taken the cargo and the valuables, but nothing was stolen. As they checked the safety equipment, they noticed the most crucial detail. The ship's only lifeboat was missing. The Mary Celeste had been abandoned. But why would a captain like Benjamin Briggs order his wife, his young daughter, and 7 experienced crewmen into a small boat in the middle of the Atlantic? The ship was still seaworthy. There was plenty of food and water to last for 6 months. There was no logical reason to leave the safety of the main vessel. The sailors from the Dei Gratia checked the ship's logbook. The last entry was dated November 25th, 9 days before they were found. At that time, the ship was near the island of Santa Maria in the Azores. Since then, the Mary Celeste had drifted hundreds of miles on its own. What happened during those 9 days? What could be so terrifying that it forced 10 people to vanish into the ocean without a trace? The discovery of the Mary Celeste led to one of the most famous maritime inquiries in history. The ship was towed to Gibraltar, where officials began a deep investigation. The lead investigator, Frederick Solly Flood, was a man of suspicion. He did not believe in ghosts or sea monsters. He believed in crime. Solly Flood suspected that the crew of the Dei Gratia had murdered everyone on the Mary Celeste to claim the salvage money. He searched the ship for hidden blood. He found a few red stains on the deck and a sword under the captain's bed, which he believed was covered in dried blood. However, scientific testing later revealed that the stains were not blood at all, but rust and old varnish. There was no evidence of a crime. The piracy theory also failed. The Mary Celeste was found with all its papers except for the captain's navigation log, which was a strange detail. As the official investigation hit a dead end, the public began to invent their own explanations for the vanishing crew. Some suggested a giant squid or a sea monster had plucked the crew members one by one from the deck. Others spoke of a sudden waterspout, a localized tornado at sea that might have sucked the people into the sky or panicked them into jumping overboard. Then there were the darker theories. Some believed that the crew had found the alcohol cargo and gotten drunk, leading to a violent mutiny. But the crew members were known to be peaceful and professional men. Furthermore, the industrial alcohol was not the kind people could drink. It was poisonous. In the 1880s, a young writer named Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, wrote a fictional story based on the mystery. His story added dramatic details that weren't true, such as the hot food on the table. These fictional additions became so famous that people began to believe they were facts. This turned the Mary Celeste from a maritime accident into a legendary ghost story that captured the world's imagination. But behind the fiction, the real mystery remained. Modern scientists have recently proposed a more grounded theory involving the ship's cargo. Out of the 1,701 barrels of alcohol, 9 were found to be empty when the ship reached Gibraltar. Researchers believe that these 9 barrels might have leaked, creating a buildup of invisible, highly flammable vapors in the hold. Captain Briggs might have heard a small explosion or seen blue flames flickering near the cargo hatch. In a moment of pure panic, fearing that the entire ship was about to explode like a giant bomb, he might have ordered everyone into the lifeboat. They probably intended to stay tied to the Mary Celeste by a rope, waiting for the vapors to clear before returning to the ship. But in the chaos of the storm and the Atlantic's powerful currents, the rope may have snapped or been cut. The crew would have watched in horror as their massive, safe ship drifted away from them, leaving them helpless in a tiny boat. The Atlantic Ocean is a place of sudden storms and giant waves. A small lifeboat would have stood no chance against the open sea. This theory explains why the ship was abandoned while still in good condition, but it doesn't explain everything. The logbook showed no signs of panic. The last entry was calm and routine. Why was there no mention of a leak or a fire? And why did they leave behind their most valuable possessions if they only intended to stay away for a few minutes? The Mary Celeste mystery is not just about a missing crew. It is about the psychological state of people under pressure. The silence of the ship when it was found is what haunts us the most. It was a floating tomb, moving through the fog without a soul on board. After the investigation, the Mary Celeste was returned to service, but it was considered a cursed vessel. No sailor wanted to work on it. Over the next decade, the ship changed owners many times. Each owner suffered bad luck, financial ruin, or tragic accidents. The curse of the Mary Celeste seemed to grow with every passing year, as if the ship itself carried a piece of the darkness that took its crew. Finally, in 1885, a captain who wanted to commit insurance fraud intentionally crashed the ship into a reef off the coast of Haiti. The ship refused to sink immediately. It sat on the rocks for a long time, a skeletal reminder of its mysterious past. In 2001, underwater archaeologists finally located the remains of the Mary Celeste beneath the sand and coral. Even with modern technology, the wreckage could not tell us what happened on that fateful day in 1872. The ocean keeps its secrets well. The bones of the ship are now part of the reef, but the story lives on. Was it a freak accident of nature? A tragic mistake by an overprotective father? Or something we cannot explain with science? The Mary Celeste remains the ultimate ghost ship. It represents our deepest fear, vanishing without a trace, leaving the world behind as if we never existed. Every time a modern ship finds an empty vessel drifting at sea, the name Mary Celeste is whispered again. The mystery has inspired countless movies, books, and legends, yet the truth remains hidden beneath the waves. Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, their daughter Sophia, and the 7 crewmen are now part of the sea's long memory. Their beds were made, their clothes were dry, and their lives were interrupted in a single, silent moment. Whatever they saw, whatever they feared, they took it with them into the depths. We are left with only questions and the haunting image of a ship sailing itself across the Atlantic. In the world of the unknown archive, the Mary Celeste is a chapter that may never be closed. The ocean is not just water, it is a graveyard of stories that have no ending. As we look out at the horizon, we must wonder how many other ghost ships are out there, hidden by the mist. The Mary Celeste reminds us that even in our modern world, there are forces that we cannot control and mysteries we cannot solve. The wind still blows over the Atlantic, and the waves still hide the truth about the day the world lost 10 people to the silence. Thank you for joining us in the Unknown Archive. Stay tuned as we continue to sail into the darkest corners of history.